Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Manny Lagos. Manny, we've had a couple days. We're back in Minnesota. How are you feeling? A disappointing way, obviously, to end the season, not with the trophy, but with the loss, unfortunately. But such is life in the MLS Cup playoffs. Only one team comes out happy. How are you feeling a couple days later?
I think it never gets old how abruptly season ends.
Yeah.
Whether you're the fan, working for the club, the players, I've experienced obviously all of those, and it's never easy. It's just never easy because you've got to be in that moment of like, we're going to win, we're going to keep going. You got to play on that edge and be on that edge the entire time. And that when that final whistle blows, like it's over, and there's just this like kind of huge emotional kind of just drainage that happens. And I think then the processing of the season and processing of where, everything is always kind of trickles in. So that's where I'm at, kind of exhausted, kind of tired, trying to recap an amazing road trip in the end. Like I said, I'll throw a lot of positives into this episode versus last year when the Galaxy was a lot harder to do. I think the guys and the staff flew back to Minnesota, hopefully feeling proud about the season they had, and especially the run they made and how they represented themselves in that game in San Diego. I thought was very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just from like a personal viewpoint aspect, like just being on the plane both times back, and I don't know whether this was just an aspect of the fact that we left a little bit later than we did last year against LA Galaxy, where we left immediately after the game last year. This year, we took a little bit of a day to leave. The mood on the plane seemed a little bit better than it was last year, where you felt the impact of the way that loss happened. Whereas this year, you could feel there was a lot of crushing disappointment that the season was ending, but they're still very proud of the season they had and the way they played throughout that match. So we're gonna, because this is the final podcast of the season, we'll have a more kind of a broader season in review podcast coming up in a couple weeks' time once we get through the Thanksgiving holiday. Line up some schedules for that. We're gonna flip the schedule here a little bit, the normal rundown. We're gonna jump right into this Western Conference semifinal, Manny, and this was an incredible match, an incredible atmosphere, drama filled throughout the 90 minutes. And we went in knowing that these two teams play very different ways, and we got both of those teams playing in those very specific ways. San Diego possessing the ball, putting on a lot of pressure, Minnesota absorbing that pressure, playing very defensively, trying to hit on the counterattack. And in the end, it took a really, really special moment of brilliance from the San Diego attack to break down a very stout Loons backline to get the better of Minnesota on the night. And that was essentially the lone difference on the night.
Yeah. I think if I'm going to do a little bit of a setup, 36,000 sold out, just great stuff by San Diego. They've had a great season, record breaking for an expansion team, and they play really good soccer. They showed up. Our fans flew out and really gave us support. We had a bunch of front office staff that decided to come, a lot of them on their own dime, which I think was amazing. Just showed super great support. Had some personal friends that last minute showed up on the game day, which I really liked. And then you got probably my biggest negative would be the field. San Diego's got to get that sorted out. That it's MLS is too big now to have football lines, and San Diego's too sunny of a market, even with a football game there 2 days before, not to have a type of service that's ready to kind of present MLS as a world-class league. And frankly, if they want to be a world-class club, that's got to get sorted. It just wasn't good enough. And I'm not going to criticize to the nth degree because they're in the first year. They're doing a lot of things. They're figuring a lot of things out. You can't always get everything right. But I do think that was one of my negatives and the whole scope of what was a presentation for an outstanding kind of MLS playoff game. And it was an amazing one. It was cagey. It was tough. I really think the staff and the players deserve a lot of credit about how they went about really limiting San Diego to not being a dangerous team at home for most of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that sticks out to me the most is how few chances San Diego really did have at the Minnesota net, considering how much of the ball they had, where they had it. They had it so much deep into the Minnesota half. It really was surprising that they came out of that game with just the one shot on target, which ended up in the back of the net. And you felt that. You really felt that from the crowd, man. You said 33,000 there. When the match started, the place was bumping. The place was really exceptionally loud. Where our broadcast booth was in the press box right over their supporter section, it was loud. One of the loudest atmospheres we've been in this season. And as that first half wore on, as they got to halftime 0-0, and there still wasn't a chance on net, you could feel some nerves and tension in that crowd. The volume dropped quite a bit throughout that first half as they realized, oh man, this is a very, very close match. And this is going to take something extremely special to break through in this one.
Yeah, I really thought that first half tactically, the positives that I think were really impressive were just how organized we were defensively and how, our system really slowed them down with the tempo. And I was a little bit surprised, if I'm being honest, that they didn't think about, again, when we have that set up with the back three, it goes to a back five. But the space is still wide when you really push the ball wide, and you would get Load and Pereira trying to cover and run a lot. But if you do it slow, then they'll just kind of jog there and help out Anthony or help out Bongi to make sure it's 2v2 on the sides. And, I thought San Diego had too many guys in the middle and really relied on Godoy to be their tempo setter. And that's just not his game. I mean, Godoy's a tough, gritty player. I don't think he's a final pass player or understands maybe how to get the tempo going. So I thought in some ways our system and setup really, they didn't quite understand how good we are defensively sometimes. And then where I could kind of flip it to say how good we were in that first half, we were poor going forward. We were poor with deciding how we were going to attack, because there was like 4 or 5 times where the space and numbers were there for us to go and really hurt them. And if I'm being honest in the first half, I think you could say it was the field, you could say it was sharpness of some of our offensive players. We didn't quite hurt them based on how well we played and how little kind of danger they had going forward. I think the best chance we had was maybe the free set piece where the ball went to Anthony back to the Load, and then he kind of had a shot that was a good opportunity that got blocked in the box. But overall, though, you were exactly right. As the half went on, their fans realized this was not going to be the Portland game. This was not going to be a 4-0 celebration onward to the Western Conference Final. This was a team that was serious about figuring out a way to win the game. This is a team that moves the ball well. Doesn't move the ball well, is very disciplined and organized. And you're right. Halftime was fascinating because it could have gone one or two ways. And I think what happened at halftime is our guys and Eric and the staff, let's keep the lineup, tweak a few things, and then they got hungry about going forward a little bit. And it was all us for about the first 20, 25 minutes of that second half.
Technical difficulties. You had a cat being dumb here.
I love it. I think it should be a part of the show. There it is.
Goodness. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Sorry about that. It's as the half went on, clearly tensions ratcheted up. And as you said, coming on the second half, certainly things changed. Minnesota had a couple of chances. You had the incredible goal line save by Ian Pilcher on a Robin Load chance. And that was Dan and I have talked back on that on our travel back from the game afterwards, that if that chance goes in, the game is obviously very, very different. I don't know. Maybe San Diego find a way to score, but that certainly allows the Loons to even buckle down more defensively and just frustrate San Diego more. But that chance goes in, it's an absolute game changer. We always know goals change games, but that early in the second half, if that goes in with the way the first half played out, you certainly start to feel some tensions and some anxiety build in the fans and in the team on the field. And maybe there's some earlier substitutions than we saw in that match where the substitutions came late. It felt like neither coaching staff wanted to be the staff to blink first on the substitutions and change how things went in that match. But once that goal went in by Dreyer, things certainly had to switch from there. The Pilcher save was a big talking point. Yeboah had a great chance on a breakaway. The first touch gets away from him, allows Cisniega to sweep it up. That was another talking point, another big moment in the match where you get Calvin Yeboah making the run that we wanted him to make, and just the first touch kind of lets him down there.
Yeah, I think you could argue it as a first or second. I think he had one touch right before that. So, but either way, his touch did let him down a little bit. Great little run, great little ball. I think it was by Robin. Again, I think there was another few moments just like where we really now moved forward as a group when we after our good defending. And those two chances, I mean, that's the difference of the game sometimes. I mean, you really look at it was clear that we were going to win the expected goals just by those two chances and how good they were, which we did. We won the expected goals in the day, which is amazing. I think they only had that one shot on goal, which was a goal. So again, I think there's so many things we did really well and deserved to win that game. But this is sports. You know, the other team wants to win too. And you said it best. It took a moment of magic to win a game that I think we were going to be really hard to score on. Like, I mean, be scored against.
Yeah.
But I really would love that Yeboah won back because I think, again, he was still getting to his sharpness in the end of this year and he couldn't quite get going. Even in the first half, he worked hard. He had a few moments where he had some 1v1s where he could have broke out and he didn't quite get there. So, again, it put a shift in, no doubt about it. He played the whole 90 plus minutes. But I'm sure he wants that one back. Great chance for the club. Yeah.
And for Yeboah, we talked a lot about his impact in that Seattle game and how we needed more. And to be fair to him, there was a couple of runs in this San Diego match early on, especially where he made them. And it's like, those are the runs you want him to make that we've been dying for him to make to kind of open up that defense. Just the ball sometimes didn't get into him, whether it was just a poorly weighted pass or a really good defensive takeaway. But there was some runs there that early on that I like to see from him, that I wanted to see from him, and that he started to finally kind of get back into. And you saw the his teammates recognizing those runs that he was making and trying to thread the passes in, but San Diego's defense was pretty good on the night as well. Going back to a point you made just a little bit ago, Godoy, I don't know if it showed up a lot on the TV screen, but it was a battle that I was watching. Godoy and Pereira throughout that first half. They were chippy at each other. There was
chippy and chirpy.
Chippy and chirpy. There was some swipes at each other as they were running past each other off the ball. Those two did not like each other throughout that 90 minutes. That was one of my favorite battles to watch throughout the match. But let's get to it. The moment that changed the game, that ended the season for Minnesota United, unfortunately, it really was a truly special moment. Corey Baird getting the ball on the end line and just recognizing that he had two Loons defenders on him and there was a ton of space for the MLS newcomer of the year, and Anders Dreyer, and just a brilliant back heel pass, and Anders Dreyer just comes in and smashes it near post past Dane St. Clair, a shot that normally doesn't get past Dane, but the run up that Dreyer had and the power that he put on it was going to be hard to save for even the world's best keepers.
Yeah, and I even think Dane might have saw it a little late because Boxall was shifting over. It's one of those plays where they definitely had a ball that I feel like almost felt like it might go over the end line. It didn't look like it was going to kind of slow up, but it did. So it was a really good ball. And Corey was very honest and made a good run. And then I think there was something instinctual that Corey Baird did there where really the only way to get out of getting double teamed there was to kind of do this amazing skilled play where you put the ball back into a dangerous area. And well, listen, great goal. You know, at the end of the day, you can't deny that was a great goal. It felt like we had it covered up until we didn't, which credit to San Diego. And like I said, it's one of those ones where you got probably the MVP of the league if Messi's not in this league.
Yeah.
Hitting a ball from, I don't know, probably 15 yards out, top shelf for our hockey world. It's a great finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Great finish. Unfortunately, that's the separator on Monday night, late Monday night in San Diego, as Anders Dreyer scores the goal and Minnesota just couldn't find a way to answer. They had plenty of, they certainly pushed over in the final, what was that, 16 minutes to the match, 18 minutes of the match, trying to get back across the end line and level it to take it to extra time. They certainly tried. I just couldn't find a way to break through. And that ends the season, unfortunately, is that one goal. In some ways, it felt like San Diego dominated the match. You just look based on possession and the field tilt and where the ball was throughout the match. But ultimately, the Loons generated more shots on target than San Diego, and they played the game that they wanted to. I know that doesn't really suit a lot of MLS national analysts, but that's the way Minnesota set up all season long, and they played a really, really great game. Just, it was one moment of brilliance, Manny, that separated the two teams.
Yeah, I thought, you look at the back three, Harvey, really warrior-like, Boxall warrior-like. I think Dugan grew into the game.
Mhm.
If we're trying to be, he could have been a little bit more probably like red flaggy on the Corey Bird assist for the goal. Like I just think, but again, it kind of looked like it was going to go out of bounds. It looked like he had help and support. So you sometimes don't want to go too crazy when you double team there because Corey might be able to draw a foul or a PK because you are in the
Yeah.
box. So that's where you get a little bit more cautious.
Mhm.
I thought Bongi and Anthony had really good games. Both those guys in the first 15 minutes had to deal with some crosses on the far post where that box defending and open your shoulders and clearing is so important. I thought they were dialed in defensively from the start. If you think about Anthony had to do with Dreyer, and Dreyer by the end of the first half started shifting all over the field. I mean, I can't give a
Mhm.
bigger compliment to Anthony in that. The fact that Dreyer's like, I can't get over here and get by this guy. I'm going to go to other spaces in the field. Huge compliment. And I thought Bongi's work rate was really, really strong and really put in a, kind of a workmanlike performance. So Trapp and Triantis in that middle battled there. And obviously Lodin Pereira had to do a lot of work along with Kelvin, where, you're going to get swarmed when you're defending deep like that and you try to get out. It's really hard to keep the ball. So overall, I thought there were some really great warrior-like performances that kept us in it. I mean, I feel like it hurts different than last year because I think we are the better team in the day. And again, there's two teams that want to win a soccer game, and sometimes you just can't.
Yeah, and I just thought Marcanic, when you look at the full scope of that 90 minutes, he impressed me the most out of
Yeah.
maybe all the players because of what he was forced to deal with and forced to cover in Anders Dreyer and how much San Diego pushed the ball to that side of the field throughout that match. He was under pressure a lot. And as you said, he forced Dreyer to kind of abandon the right side and try and get into the middle, try and get on to get to the left side just to get on the ball and find some space.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think Harvey for me was a little bit more my backline player of the game just because he really snuck forward sometimes and like he kind of did the same thing Godoy was doing to a lot of the San Diego players in terms of just getting under their skin and kind of so I'm going to, if we're kind of going by line, I'm going to probably give Harvey my defensive player of the game, but I just love Anthony, like you said. I mean, he is just managing games left and right in different ways. And then you blink and the guy's got, 10 goals in the year, 11 goals. So,
Yeah, 10.
Yeah, just another great, he looked really like comfortable dealing with high
Yeah.
level athletic players as a defender.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were trying to overload that side and push a number of guys over there. And he just felt like the communication between him and Duggan and Triantis and Trapp when they dropped
even
back.
Joaquin had to come over there and help out as well. Yep.
It was impressive. And the overall defensive performance from Marcanic and the back line overall was really spectacular on the night. Really that kind of that leads me to something that I talked to you about as we were getting on the plane that just kind of irritates me coming out of that match and the national conversation around the match and how some commentators felt like soccer won, that the right style of soccer won on the night. And that was the conversation going into this match, is the two different styles of soccer and two different brands of soccer. And it irritated me because you look at the full 90 minutes of that match and Minnesota played exactly like they've been playing all season long. That's exactly what everybody knew they would do. And they came out and executed and were very nearly got across the line. It's just one moment of brilliance by San Diego, who were forced to make that brilliant play to just even find their lone dangerous shot of the night to get back into to get in the back of the net and move on. It frustrates me that this team that has provided such a fun season for Minnesota United fans, for us on the staff and the commentary all season long. It's been so fun to watch this team just battle week in and week out and take it to some of the best teams in the league and really kind of rough up everybody's favorite in Inter Miami in that 4-1 win back in May. This is a team that played a different style of soccer that, many of the national analysts don't like, but they played it really exceptionally well and were one of the best, most well-organized teams throughout the season. And it's frustrating that they can't get acknowledgement for that. Instead, it's the better brand of soccer won on the night. And it's still, of all the things that frustrated me on the night, the turf, the pitch, the setup, it's that thing that sticks out to me. And I know we shouldn't be talking about social media and some of the analysis coming out of the match, but it kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth because these guys played some incredible soccer all year long, weren't expected to be this good throughout the season coming into the season. And they were at the top of the West all season long. It's just, that frustrates me that these guys don't get the recognition that they deserve.
Hey, I love the rant, Jonathan. You never do rants, so you can go at it a little bit more. I think we need it. I think the challenge I think here is it doesn't make you look irrational for bringing up that national media kind of doesn't takes the easy way out, say like, oh, we want to just give homage to the what we think is quote unquote the sexy team of soccer.
Yeah.
And the reality is globally, one of the knocks of MLS is it's not so embraced all the tenets of soccer, the discipline, the structure, organization, particularly defensively. You know, I would tell you it drives me crazy because there's a reality that we've always talked about this year where the team will eventually evolve and it didn't quite get there we wanted to. Maybe that's the Tani sale. Maybe that's just, we decided this was the best way to go. But globally, people looked at us and with a lot of like just respect and like, because they understand how hard it is to get those principles of organization defensively for 90 minutes. The irony is everybody talks about wanting to be Pep in Man City of like 4 years ago. When Pep first got to Man City, the first thing he did is get the principles defensively down, get the idea of how my superstars are going to react when we lose the ball, are going to keep their shape when we lose it. So then when we get it back, we'll ticky-tock forever and ticky-tock a team to death. I kind of love that they don't do that anymore because that was a little boring for my taste. But it was the principles of defense that got there. And the big knock on MLS is that we still don't embrace the global principles of how hard it is to be organized and structured defensively so that you don't allow teams to just have it wide open and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And here comes Minnesota United who says this is a great way to compete and do it. And again, I think we even would say we'd want to evolve a little more. But I don't like it, Jonathan, because I think some of our national media, unfortunately, look Americanized a little bit and not like the global game way. So ironically, I flip it back and say I think it's them being naive when they say that, because I think it's them just like thinking there's this romantic way of winning. And I would argue San Diego had to dig down and grit to win that game, not be sexy football. So at the end of the day, I think your rant's okay. I think that's their own. I think that's their issue versus ours. 100%.
Finley's is a mission-driven pet brand redefining what it means to do business with purpose. Founded in 2016 by two former special education teachers, Finley's was created to address the staggering unemployment rate among individuals with disabilities, a community too often left out of the workforce. Every purchase of Finley's products supports real, paid job opportunities and community development for people with disabilities through the company's inclusive employment initiatives. From job coaching to community engagement, Finley's is creating a future where everyone has a seat at the table and a chance to thrive. Follow Finley's on Instagram at GetFinleys. Well, and you saw the impact it had on the rest of the league throughout the season. I mean, everybody knocks the long throw-ins as kind of a cheap way to create chances, but you saw the numbers across the league start to skyrocket about a quarter of the way through the year. And you've seen, I don't want to say Minnesota United had the impact on the Premier League, but you've seen how many long throw-ins there have been in the Premier League this season. Like the long throw-ins clearly are in vogue right now. And especially in MLS, a lot of that is down to the effectiveness and the ability Minnesota United had. And so kind of knocking Minnesota as this bad brand of soccer just irks me because it was fun. I can't imagine there are many Loons fans who go away from the season. Yes, the way it ended stinks. It sucks. It hurts. But you look back at the season as a whole, I can't imagine there's many Loons fans who walk away from this season not feeling like this was one of the most fun seasons we've ever had with this team. And in the MLS era. It was really fun. And that kind of leads us to the quick reflections on the 2025 season. As I said a little bit ago at the top of the show, we'll do a more broad look back at the 2025 season. We'll get a couple of guests to just go through the high points, the low points, the big awards, and stuff like that. We'll do that a little bit later on, but overall, record-breaking year for Minnesota, Manny. Most wins in a single season, no back-to-back losses in regular season play. The run to the U.S. Open Cup semifinal, the run to the conference semifinals again this season. Probably the most, as we we just talked about the most well-defined style of soccer they've had in throughout a season. This was a really, really fun season, and one that's going to be long in the memories of many Loons fans.
Yeah, really, I completely agree. I mean, obviously, great Open Cup run. Oh, that Miami game. We'll go through this a lot when we do the recap show, especially with some guests. So I don't want to go too much into it, but yeah, I go back to like trying to process the year, and at the end of the day, I hope the fans and people are excited about how we evolved this year and where we can go next year. There's gonna be a lot of challenges. Again, right now, the next week of the Minnesota United is one of the hardest weeks for the sporting staff because you've got a ton of decisions to make. Negotiations start right away. The league needs information for their own decision-making processes. So there's options to be picked up, options decline, negotiations start firmly. So it's a big, ironically, even 48 hours, and then there's another kind of week. So for some of the staff, a lot of work happens right now behind the scenes to get ready for next year already. But again, I being on the trip and the plane, it was different than last year for sure.
For sure.
I mean, there was a sense of pride and like being down, but being down because we knew we were that close to getting through it. And I still think it was interesting tactically. We did the subs, a little later than usual. We didn't use all of our subs, so those things were tough. Like in a good way. I can see why we were playing so well, and it got a little desperate at the end. Where do we put more legs in to hunt the ball down, or we let the guys who were playing so well? I want to highlight again. I know you go back to the game, but the warrior-like play of Triantis, I thought was through the roof.
Yeah.
And obviously he's only 22. If we're talking about that game plus next year, how exciting is it to have somebody like him on our roster as we start to think about what things we need to get better and in what areas? There's no doubt he had a great game. I thought Robin had a really good second half and worked hard in the first half. Just took a little while maybe to get used to the field and the choppiness of it. And again, I thought Kelvin had his moments, but just so many warrior-like performances. And I did want to highlight Triantis because I thought he was really, really special.
I think going into next season with him in the midfield, that is an exciting prospect because you saw the impact he had when he joined this team late in the season. He was one of my favorite players to watch once he started taking over that starting role in the midfield alongside Will Trapp, just week in and week out. The battles he would get into throughout the game, he was really fun to watch, and I can't wait to see his impact going forward into next season. So what's next for the club? As you said, next 48 hours, really a key time for this club in the offseason. A lot of options to figure out, to pick up, to decline, to work through negotiations. Big notes. Obviously, we'll talk about the playoffs here in a second, the rest of the playoffs, but you got MLS Next Fest, December 4th through the 15th. All three Loons Academy teams going down to Arizona to compete in the largest youth soccer scouting and talent identification event in the United States. That's going to be exciting. That's going to be a big time for scouting and development. The World Cup draw, when you talk about international soccer, coming up December 5th, and we got kind of how those pots will be laid out, and already people dreaming up the groups of death that the U.S. will get in the World Cup, because Manny, it's not a World Cup if the U.S. don't get a group of death.
I'd be very upset if we do. So I saw one where potentially it could be Colombia, Italy, Norway. I was just like that. I'll be depressed for a little while if it's that. I don't think that's. Let's hope there's some shenanigans to help the host teams. Although there's 3 host teams now, so it's not like.
So who do you help out the most?
Yeah, who do you help out the most? Exactly right. So.
Super draft coming up on December 18th. So plenty of scouting to do over the next couple of weeks for the scouting staff in the front office. And then players reporting to training at the beginning of January. And then the first game of the season, what now, if I'm doing my math correctly, from Monday night, 87 days away from the season opener in Austin next February, Manny.
What is that, February, like 16th?
21st.
21st, okay. Yeah.
Because we already got the schedule, too. We didn't even talk about that.
I love
the schedule
that.
Came out.
I'll give the league a lot of credit. This is the earliest the schedules ever came out. I love it. Hopefully our fans can already start thinking about home and away planning, which it should be. I mean, again, I think all the other major sports get their schedules out really early so people can plan. And I think it's great that we have more and more fans that like going on these away games, going away trips, even the home games. So you decide when you go on your cabin weekends, et cetera. So that if we're just flipping to the schedule, it is exciting and tough first 5 home games.
Yeah.
really, really great start to the season. Both away and home will be tough, but there is no doubt we have a tough start, which I like. I think that's a good way to kind of like get into the season right away is play the tough teams.
Yeah. Austin, Cincinnati, Nashville, Vancouver, Seattle, LA Galaxy to start the season,
Ooh.
both home and away, San Diego as well. That is a tough stuff start, but it's the beginning of a 2-year stretch where the schedule gets a little wonky because of obviously the calendar flip, but also this next year you've got the World Cup, so you've got a 2-month break in there as well, kind of getting fans
6 week technically, but yes.
Yeah, getting fans sort of used to that idea of not playing in the summer because the calendar flip is coming. But a, a 6-week break for the World Cup, that's going to be interesting to see how the team kind of sprints through the first half of the season and then comes back and goes through another sprint in the second half of the season. So that's a storyline I'll be watching next season. What are the storylines kind of giving a primer for the offseason that you're watching and keeping an eye on this offseason as we get there for Minnesota United? Obviously, the league still has to get there. We got the conference semifinals coming up this weekend and the MLS Cup final coming up the weekend after that.
Well, I mean, I think we're talking about the playoffs, just how things lined up for the greatest player of all time. I mean, let's be honest, like they woke up after the weekend, David Beckham was like, oh, I've got Messi at home to win the MLS Cup now. And I don't think when the playoffs started, people thought, Miami with two games left would control the home field advantage, and they did, and they do. So I think that's still that's a huge storyline how they went to Cincinnati and just crushed Cincinnati. And I think a little bit unlike us, I think that's got to hurt for Cincinnati because not showing up at home in big moments is tough. We've been there before. I'm not trying to over criticize. So, and certainly the Philly game, I thought Philly played well. I just think NYCFC is on fire right now. They remind me a little bit of Vancouver in terms of they're defensively really strong. They go forward and they have this balanced offense defense attack now that I think if Miami gets too complacent about now that they have home field advantage, they better watch out. But having said that, I think Miami and Mascherano has done a great job. Big, brave decision, benching Suarez, going with the young Argentinian
Worked
kid.
out.
And it paid off really well. And they obviously, to me, look like the favorites now for the rest of the league. And, on our side of things, Vancouver and San Diego, I think it'll be a great game. I think where we should be proud is I think we were right there as one of the best teams in the West this year. We went toe-to-toe with almost all of them. And I think San Diego and Vancouver are very deserving as well to represent the West in the final.
That Vancouver match, we haven't talked about it, obviously. That Vancouver match against LAFC, one of the most drama-filled matches that we've ever seen outside of the Game 3 Minnesota-Seattle.
I think it's right up there with the Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely. It was incredible. The playoffs continue to deliver. That was one of the funnest matches I've watched as a neutral this playoffs all season long. Then you've got, as you said, Inter Miami just taking it to Cincinnati. That's going to leave a really sour taste in that Cincinnati team's mouth after they had a great season for them as well. I mean, finishing as high as they did in the Eastern Conference, battling and competing as well as they did throughout the season. That's going to be a really tough way to end their season, losing at home as thoroughly as they did and just failing to show up, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. New York City FC, for me, that is a team that is battling against all odds. That's the David versus Goliath there. And that's not something you normally say for a New York City team that is part of the City Football Group. But with the injuries they had to go into or that they suffered through the international break, losing their key player, and then finding a way to beat the number one team in the Eastern Conference at Philadelphia. That was as impressive a performance as I've seen in the conference semifinals. And this is going to be another big test for them coming up this weekend.
I think these New York teams should be lower seeds because the Red Bulls did it last year as a
that's true.
Final. So
don't send them into the playoffs as a high seed is what you're saying.
Right. Exactly. They'll get upset. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to those semifinals and looking forward to the finals as well. Or the final coming up the following weekend after that. The playoffs should be fun. I'm taking it Miami's your favorite from here on out.
Yeah, I think as the week in the news of what Vancouver's roster situation is, That may change if they get through San Diego. Right now, I have probably San Diego beating Vancouver just because I think, unlike our game where we had a little time to recover, I think Vancouver only has, a couple days and they have some injuries and red cards and they have to go to San Diego. I think the field does not lend to Vancouver's style, that bumpy kind of not good.
Well, they also don't play on a great turf pitch themselves, so they're used to.
Yeah, but it is true and smooth. If I'm being honest, there's some. We can all rip on turf, but there are some positives, which is it plays fast and you can get your tempo going. I think it's a little bit harder on that field in San Diego. So, my viewpoint would be I might shift to not Miami if Vancouver finds a way to beat San Diego.
Yeah.
But my gut says I think San Diego is going to have a better game. I think we've playoff tested them about getting ready for Vancouver. You go through a mentally tough game like that. Sometimes it just makes you better. I think San Diego's going to be better next week than they were against us.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I mean, that was a mighty test for them. Not like Vancouver didn't have to go through a test themselves, but as you said, the red card, the injuries that they suffered, especially on that back line, is going to be a really big hill for them to climb against the San Diego team that will put that defense under a lot of pressure on Saturday. Both those games kicking off Saturday afternoon, evening, 5 p.m. Central Time, Miami, New York City, down in Miami for that one, and then San Diego, Vancouver, 8 p.m. for that one in San Diego, California. Looking forward to both those games. What do you want to see from this team? What do you want to see the Loons do as we go back to kind of like the offseason picture and looking forward through this offseason? What do you want to see the Loons do this offseason to continue building on what was a great year in 2025?
Yeah, I don't think maybe we save that for the show with our guests about the roster build itself. But I think the biggest thing is to make sure we keep moving forward in terms of our hunger to win, and really, like I said, I think that actually grows to like not being frustrated about but look at the basis of what we've done really well and how we've competed against a very competitive league. And for 2 years in a row, we've been in the final 8. And we ask the question, what do we need to do and how do we need to grow to build to get over that hump and get to the Western Conference Finals and the MLS Cup? And, I do think that'll come into the roster build and the valuation of how we want to evolve our play. No doubt about it. But when the bases are there, I think you get excited about what the team can become. I think as a fan, though, you got to be honest that the MLS and like pro sports in general is tough because there's guys who are in their prime that may or may not be on the club next year. And that's just a reality that there's negotiations that happen and there's some players that either getting a little bit older or have a market value that they feel they're higher to go somewhere else. So the roster will shift. Actually, there's no doubt about it. But I still think the core will be back. And I still think the tenets of how we can be successful in the Western Conference and continue to grow and sign more players who are hungry to win gets me excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this offseason, seeing how everything develops. As we said, we'll be back in a couple weeks to kind of piece through and talk through everything that we saw in 2025, hand out some awards, and then look forward into the future, into the off season, discuss maybe how the playoffs ended, who the MLS Cup final champion is, and we'll talk all through that in a couple weeks' time. But Manny, it's been a pleasure all season long with you all season long, and looking forward to talking to you next season.
Likewise. Let's do cats and kids on this podcast all the time, by the way. I'm in for that. So. All right, sir.
All right. Have a good one. We will, Loons fans, appreciate you stopping by and listening to us all season long. Thanks to the production staff all season long. Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Entler for putting this on every week. And Loons fans, we'll talk to you in 2026.